Welcome to the Nerd Cave News. I am one of your hosts, Zach Dykes, joined along with, in the farmlands of Pennsylvania, you'll find a simple country man. The county fair winning apple farmer. It's Apple Adam Abadiah.
What's up, y'all?
Now, AAA. That's what AAA. How you doing tonight?
I am fantastic, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about this episode. We got a lot to discuss. We got a game that
review.
we're reviewing, not from a AAA, but from a AA. You know what I mean? So I'm really excited about tonight. But this episode is brought to you by our wonderful patrons. You can become part of the ship, part of the exclusive crew by going over to patreon.com/nerdcave, just like our wonderful crew members, the first mate, Brandon Hicks, our helmsman, the conductor, Gunners, Richard Newell, Daniel Sanford, Rushing Waters Yoga, Marilyn James, Brittany, the Granny B. Harrison, and our deckhand, Martin Sager. Amy says, I don't remember that name. You wrote it. It's an old one.
Yeah, I know.
I had to search through.
She submitted so many she doesn't remember what she's done.
Yeah, and guys, if you want to submit your Derek name, please do so by using the form down below or in the chat, whichever way you're watching. This is the Nerd Cave, where it's the Nerd Cave News, guys, where each and every week you can watch us go through all the video game news that you need to know. You can watch us live over on twitch.tv/Nerdcave Network or over on youtube.com/Nerdcave Network. Make sure to hit and follow and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything, and like it so more people get to see the video. We also have a podcast version that's over on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and Anchor. Go subscribe and listen to it each and every week. While you're there, give us a 5-star review. If there's anything less, Derek will eat your soul. I mean, AAA will eat your soul like a Red Delicious.
Like, no, we're gonna keep it family friendly because I was gonna mention some anime, but the as a reference, but I'm like, I'm not gonna bring that up on a family show. Let's not do that. But yes, I will eat your soul for sure.
Yeah, don't make it weird, man. don't make it weird.
I'll be a soul eater. There we go.
That's you go.
TV 14.
There you go. Yeah. Or you could be like the guy from Death Note. You know, he ate apples.
Oh, yeah. Ryuk.
Yeah, Ryuk.
Yeah.
Or Willem Dafoe.
No. We don't mention that one. We don't. Like, I didn't watch it, so I can't count. I heard his performance was actually decent, but I'm just like, no. We don't. Just like the live-action Dragon Ball movie, we don't mention that.
Yeah, like, Willem Dafoe is a great actor. I haven't watched it. So I don't know.
He made No Way Home. That's, I'm just saying.
Jess has a question.
Uh-huh.
How are souls best served?
Full of grace and hope.
So Shuhei's soul would be
delicious. Top S tier quality.
I like a little paprika. You know what I mean? Little paprika on there. Murdoch, thank you for that prime sub. 18 months on an 18-month streak. Thank you so much. Casual Deck, I'll eat your soul. Yeah.
I'll eat your soul.
Dan says Defoe was good and Beyond Two Souls. Never played Beyond Two Souls. I played every other game by that studio, but Beyond Two Souls. Dream? Yeah. Everyone but that one.
I'm going to play Heavy Rain.
It's very heavy.
And it has a lot of rain?
Yeah, it's got a lot of minerals in that rain. It's very dense. Very dense rain.
Not as dense as the rain of Death Stranding. That brings oil.
Yeah, but you can turn oil into fuel. July is done, guys. And just like we're done with that conversation, July is done. We're into August. And what that brings is God of War 2018 will be our August and our September Game Club game. Go ahead and download it. You can get it on PC, you can get it on the PlayStation 4 and PS5. I'm really, really excited about getting back into this game, getting ready for God of War Ragnarok November 9th, and just to just let everybody see how far we got. There's our countdown, everybody. There's our countdown to when God of War Ragnarok.
Days.
96 days, 5 hours, and 27 seconds. I'm excited. I cannot wait for this. I'm ready to, hear boy again. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good. And then, like, where does it go after this? We're gonna talk about all of it, and we're gonna be talking about all these things. Our predictions, what Ragnarok's going to be about. How far do they go down the rabbit hole?
Yeah. Like Thor said in the preview trailer, you seem like a calm and reasonable person. Are you a calm and reasonable person? He's gonna find out. He's gonna find out.
Atreus is definitely not calm. I mean, he's like, I'm gonna murder your son. I'm gonna murder your son.
he's like the meme Leroy Jenkins.
He's like Itachi on Blue Black Ops mission. It's like, you gotta kill everybody. He's like, okay. Just like, hey guys, it's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? It's like Chris Judge is amazing. 100%. Yes. Murdoch says, I really wish I could be more excited for this. Talking about God of War Ragnarok. And Murdoch, I would suggest trying it again. I know it's not the same combat style, and that was something that, me and Derek are very hardcore God of War fans.
Mm-hmm.
We've played all the mainstays. We've played Ascension. I've played all the PSP version of the games and everything. Ghost of Sparta, amazing.
Yes, definitely underrated in the series.
Like, the way they were able to bring that game, because I think if they would have stayed the same vein as what they were, God of War 2018 would not be as talked about or touted as such an amazing game.
Yeah. It'd be like Killzone when they put out Shadowfall, just like, it's by the numbers. It's good, but nothing to write home about. And that's why they're shutting down the online servers.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting here with a sore heart, man. You might go check that out.
Well, I mean, all right, like to put a positive spin on this, like not everything is for everyone. Like, I Red Dead Redemption 2, so much hype leading up to the launch of it, and I actually bought it because I never played Red Dead 1. Figured I played Red Dead 2 because technically it's a prequel, even though it's a sequel game wise. But I was not enthralled. Like, I know so many people were enthralled with Red Dead 2, the story, not the online portion. And I played it, and that opening sequence near about put me to sleep. Like, I was just like, I don't care about none of this. Like, it got interesting once I got down the mountain, but I didn't care to go back to it afterwards. So, just because it's a critically acclaimed game doesn't still mean it doesn't hit with everyone. Everyone has different tastes, and that's okay.
Yeah, like, Red Dead was slow in the beginning, and I am a huge... Like, I played Red Dead Revolver. I played a ton of Red Dead Redemption. And going into this one, it was like, okay, this is going to be different because it's not as arcadey as the first one. But I loved Red Dead Redemption 2. But I definitely... I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it. Murdoch says, I don't want loot in this game. I think that is my problem. I think that's the thing that makes it interesting. It's like you are constantly getting better.
It's what made Assassin's Creed better.
Yeah. It's like you're constantly getting better because you are having new equipment. Like, you've got the same weapons and everything, but you're learning how to fight better, but you're also getting new equipment throughout the whole game that enables you to do better.
Yeah.
I want to focus on story. We'll play, like, I'm sure there's like a version where there's like just more story. That's usually how like Sony games are. It's like you can have one that's a little bit more challenging, and then you can have one that's more story based and everything. So you're not going to have to focus on the loot. Maybe I like the lore so much I want to focus on it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, guys, again, our August and September game club game is God of War 2018, God of War Ragnarok. 96 days until launch, guys. I am so excited. But that's not what we're here to talk about tonight, guys. We are here to talk about Plague Tale Innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And
what an interesting game to play for this month. I'm glad because, we're sitting there going through and like, what do we want to play this month? Like, because I had some ideas, you had some ideas, and we're just like, let's just take a step back and see what's on Game Pass. And you're like, A Plague Tale Innocence. I'm like, you know what? I've been wanting to play this game for a while. Let's go ahead and do it. So, I'm glad we played this. It was definitely one of the more intriguing games. Like I said, it came out around the same time as Surge 2 and Greedfall. And I'm definitely glad we played. It was definitely the better rated of all three of them. Well, Surge 2 maybe, but how about this? Gameplay-wise, it was the more intriguing of all three of them. Because Surge is very much like Dark Souls, and it's like, not for me. Maybe one day, not for me.
Yeah, Surge, like I got it as a
free, because the first one was a free for PS Plus, right?
No, I got it as a review copy.
Oh, that's right.
And woof, that is that was not for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having to talk to a client about putting up sound panels at the same time while I do this and everything. But Surge was definitely difficult, but Plague Tale though, like I wished I would have played it sooner. Yeah. I wish I would have played it sooner. Is it amazing? By no means. It is not an amazing game. It is a very solid game. It is in that
7 range.
Yeah, that 7, like you beat it in 15, 20 hours. Like it's like if you have the time to sit down, you can beat it in a day. Like if you have the time to sit down, you can beat it in a day. And
unless you hit certain sequences where they just keep killing you over and over again, and you're like, well, let me take a break.
We'll get to that. But overall, I really enjoyed this game. And if you haven't played it, I definitely we're going to get into spoiler territory here in just a few seconds. But kind of the overview and everything, it's a game worth playing. Like it is. It's
especially since it's on Game Pass.
Yeah, it's free. And I think it's been on PlayStation Plus before. There's definitely a lot to do in this game. There is some replayability, like finding the different things and all of that kind of stuff, but it's really good. I enjoyed it a lot. Did you mention the Sea of Thieves new update? Did we talk about that? No, we're not talking about that.
I didn't see it till I was on my break. I'm like, well, this is going to be talked about later.
Yeah. They're on the seas. Thieving. They thieving. So let's get into the story.
Yeah.
The beginning
spoilers, by the way, so if you haven't beat the game, turn off your computers.
Yeah,
or turn off your sound at least.
Yeah, keep it up and lurk. So we open up. We get introduced to this family. They're
the sister and father specifically.
Yep, and their dog. Yeah. And we get introduced that they're a noble family, that he's a knight, he served in the wars and everything, and that he is protecting the land. He's making sure that everything, is according to what it should be and all that good stuff.
Definitely seems like he's on the lower end of nobility, but he's still a noble nonetheless.
Yeah, I think he fell out of grace, that sort of deal. That's what it kind of felt like.
Yeah.
But we get kind of introduced like this is their tutorial section and everything, which is fine. Yeah. And it was whatever, but then
then it goes to 100 real quick.
Yeah, it was like okay, here's this dog, you really love this dog, and I was like, this dog's gonna die.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. Like it had that emotional moment from Last of Us Part 1 with Joel's daughter, but it was more akin to you losing your horse in Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think Ghost was like way more emotional. than.
Well, because through Ghost, by the time you lose your horse, you had so much of a journey by then, because it was what, Act 3 when you officially lose him?
Yeah. So it was a much longer relationship.
Yeah.
With them and all of that. So, I think, you know, it's just kind of like, it was like trying to just get something to hit you from the very beginning.
Kind of set the tone of what this game is going to be and what to expect going forward. Because it's like, oh, and BC is so sad too. He's like, oh, what happened to him? Who got him or whatever? It was a beast, wasn't it? All of a sudden you just see him sink into the ground. I'm like, what just happened? Like I almost cried. I'm just like, that's terrifying. Why would you do this?
Yeah. It was just like, boom. No one is safe. No one is safe.
No. Hide your kids, hide your wife.
And then, like, we get back to the castle and everything. I don't want to spend too much time, but like, it sets up this relationship with the daughter and the father, that they are close, and the mother and the son, are close. But there's really no mixing of the two.
It's almost like it was planned, because, and like we'll get into it later with the mother. Like the mother, like something happened with the son, and the mother is trying to figure it out. But it's almost like they exclusively said, "Hey, we're gonna take each of these children under our wing, but they can't see each other, at least that much. We'll let them know they exist and that they are related, but that's about it. We'll take a family photo every now and then, but that's about it."
Yeah. So we get the two siblings. We get Hugo, which is the son.
Yep.
And then we get Amicia, which sounds like you're emaciated, where you've like, you know, it's kind of it is kind of a pointing to what happens in this game, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
In this game and everything.
But yeah, they get introduced, like, because they say, hey, you need to go check on you need to come see your brother. Like, she goes up there to her room, and then she's like, oh, can I see Hugo? And he's like, I don't know if he remembers who you are. And it's like, man, like, are they estranged? Like, did Hugo recently just come into the picture? Like, what's going on? Like, I mean, I know he's only 5 years old, but it's like, how can you not have somewhat of a relationship with your brother at this point? And you come to find out why, but then all of a sudden, again, you thought the dog was, you know, losing the dog was the apex of that chapter. No, some people come knock on your door and be like, we need your wife and we need your son, specifically your son. And they're like, we're not gonna tell you where he is. And then it's like, boom, dad's dead.
Yeah, just like the Inquisition rolls up, just like, you know, we've come for the boy, and we're gonna murder everybody here. And then starts what is essentially the gameplay loop of the game.
Yes.
Where you are sneaking around and trying to get past guards, using distractions, using your
tools, your crafting items,
your sling, and all of these things.
Specifically your sling, because you get a little bit target practice in the beginning, and then it's like, all right, now you've had about 2 rounds of practice. You can start killing guards, right? And it's like, sure.
Yeah, well, it's like your sling is so loud, you just have to like chunk rocks for a long time and everything. But we see them. It's Beatrice, Amicia, and Hugo. Beatrice is the mother. They're trying to get out of this, you know, house, this, you know, land and everything, because the Inquisition is all there. They're hardcore, and they're trying to catch them and everything. And we get to the gate, Derek. We get to the gate, you know, and we've had to do horrible things so far to get to the gate and everything.
Just wait, there's more.
Oh yeah, just like that's dipping the toe into what is
just the tip of this iceberg.
Yeah, like there's so much more below the water here. We get to the gate, and the main Inquisitor, Noah.
Nicholas.
Yeah, Nicholas. I called him Noah. You know what I mean? Because he's gonna
park the ballpark, at least.
He's gonna part that Red Sea. You know what I mean? Like there's gonna be a lot of blood.
And your mother has to send you through, because he's coming hot and heavy. and she closes the door behind you, and she's like, just get as far away as you can. And all of a sudden, you see this sword come through the door and blood, covered in blood, and you're like, well, there goes the mother too.
Yeah, and this next part, you're running through the woods, and the Inquisition are after you. The controller, if you're playing on PS5, is just going crazy. It's like just going absolutely crazy. The ground's shaking. Things are just like, people are disappearing and they're screaming, and you don't know what's going on. And that is some really good storytelling. Like if you're going into this game, you already know what is happening. Like that's kind of, it's been out for so long, but it does a really good job of like what is happening to these people. Even if you know what's going on, it still has that suspense, which I think is very, very cool. So they escape and everything. They get to the water, they get out of there, blah, 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 blah. And they get to their first town, and we see what is actually going on. And there's a plague.
Yep. And it's not just any plague, a bubonic plague, essentially. Plague of rats. Rats everywhere. Just go into town.
Or as we call it in the South, the blue bonnet plague.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we got the bubonic plague, and this whole town has been decimated. And the townsfolk are just killing everybody that is not in that town because they feel like that people have like sent the rats to bite their children and all this kind of stuff. And you stumble in on this. They're chasing you. This old woman helps you.
Yeah. And you don't know why. You just know that they want you. And it's like, okay.
And this is where we finally get like the crafting system introduced is in this section and everything, because before that you didn't really have anything. And I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead and everything, but the crafting system is very simple, but I think it's effective. It's effective because you could really have put a lot into that crafting system and bogged it down. With what you had, I think it did a really good job of,
it was perfectly, well, I don't want to say perfectly paced, but it was well paced in the fact it was like, all right, here's a new issue, here's a new obstacle you have to hurdle over, but here are the tools that we're going to give you in order to, or here, we're going to give you another option to get around this. Like, you can still kind of play how you want to, but we're also going to throw this into to give you a better option to go with.
Yeah, and like I loved, it was like, okay, hey, your sling is really loud. If you upgrade it, it can become quieter. Your shoes are really loud. If you upgrade your shoes, you can cobble them to make them more quiet. You can have a bigger pouch.
See the hair on your, the top of your head for whatever reason. It's super quick, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought that was really, really good the way that they introduced everything. And then we actually got introduced to the combat system, if you will, in this this combat system is no joke in the unforgiving department.
Yes.
Like you get breathed on by anything, you're dead.
They pretty much get in with 2 feet of you, done.
Yeah.
You get that animation where they just stab you. Like there was one where later in the game where if you get like one of those heavies with the spear, they don't even get 2 feet from you. They just heave ho and like impale you. And I'm like, where did this come? I remember like I was like fighting them, and I saw this guard from my right coming through, and I'm like, all right, I'll back up and get him real quick. And all of a sudden I see the spear go through my stomach. I'm like, what happened?
You foolish boy.
I know.
I did like, we'll get into all the combat and everything. Yeah. But in this section of the game, we are introduced to one of the biggest characters, which is the rats.
Yes.
And my gosh, the rats are terrifying.
Yes.
Like you hear the sound and you're just like, oh my God.
You can feel it through your controller. Like when the closer you get to it, you feel like, it's like, man, this is and like just the beady little eyes, and like especially if you're dark, like you could see them coming, but when they all like come up and surprise you and just like surround you, it's just like what do you do?
Yeah, and that brings me to, I know we'll I'm just kind of jumping into it because it makes more sense, but the problem solving in the gameplay, like having to figure out the puzzles, having to figure out how do I traverse this area, and light's the only way to effectively get rid of the rats. They won't come against the light and everything, they'll just surround it, but you can move through it and all of that. Some of the most annoying parts were in this, where you would actually get a torch and then 5 seconds later it's like, oh, I have to put my torch here and have to leave it. And it was like, I just got this torch.
Right. Like, can I use this a little bit longer, please?
Yeah, it was just, but I loved, like, it was like, okay, well, if I light this, then that opens up this. If I take this stick, I have to, go straight to this thing and make sure I get there. And then there's another bundle of sticks right there that I can light that, and then so forth and so on. It made it where you had to really think before you moved.
Yep. It's like you had to, especially if you had the sticks, because those burned out fast. Like you get the torches, those can last forever and ever, amen.
Mm-hmm.
But the sticks and the branches, you only have a limited time. So there was one later on when you're solving the little like riddle in like the for Luke, like when it's you and Lucas later on, and like I think it's like chapter 14, we have to go underground and like all the rats are like to light up the symbols, and it's like, oh, I planned this. There was one, like I got to the third one, lit that up, and then I stupidly went the wrong way, tried to come back, and my torch burned out and I got eaten. I'm like, well, that was on me. Can't complain about that.
Yeah, that one, thankfully I didn't die in that area, but I was like, this would be the easiest place to die in the whole entire game. Just because like you're crouched down, you're slower than you normally are and everything. But the rats are one of the most interesting parts of the game. Game mechanics and everything. Dan says, and if you're not careful, you become rat food. Exactly. And I think that is one of the interesting parts of it, is the rats can be used as a weapon against all people throughout the game. Not even later on, but like throughout the game, if you knock out a light, on when someone's carrying a torch or whatever, the rats, like if they're around, they will swarm that person and take them out.
Yeah.
And everything.
Which is a great tactic for them, but then it's like, all right, what does that mean for me? Like, can I still get around?
Yeah, and like there was times where like I would like knock down meat or like someone, and it's like, okay, can I get by them? But like once they were like on somebody, it was like they were fine. But it took me a little while to really understand that. It's like part of the mechanics and everything. But throughout the whole story, we're trying to find answers. Hugo has this thing called the Machiavellia, right?
The macula.
The macula. Machiavellia is a totally different thing. That's whatever. Machiavellian. Anyway, the macula, which is a blood disease that travels through their bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really know what it is. Like people don't understand it. They go through these things called thresholds that, you could easily die and all of that sort of deal.
Yeah.
But there's a potion that they're trying to find out and figure out on how to subdue it.
Subdue it. Yeah.
And you're just thinking, okay, I'm trying to like cure my brother.
Yeah.
All of these other things are going on. I'm just trying to cure my brother from the macula.
Yep.
The Dracula of the blood. And that is a good chunk of the game is trying to figure that out, because you don't, really.
My Lord, that university level took forever.
Oh my gosh, so long. But
I know the pig, Dan, the pig. It's like the pig was like, "Oh, we're going to go feed the piggy. Come on, piggy." And then it's like, "Amicia, what are you doing?" And my heart almost broke, because it's like, man, Hugo, you are because I mean, Hugo has definitely been a shut-in. Like, you could definitely, like, Amicia's been more cultured, open to the world, and that's the dynamic I love. And in the beginning, they're trying to understand each other, because Hugo, he's a 5-year-old kid, and yes, I'm sure some people were annoyed because, he's just like, well, we have to go back for Mummy. What, we don't know if Mummy is dead or not. I want to see Mummy. And it's like, I'm sure some people got annoyed. It's like, this kid has a one-track mind, but, and I know we don't remember when we were 5 years old, but as a 5-year-old, like you see any 5-year-old, they have a one-track mind, and that's all that's on them because, you know, especially his mother's all, he had a huge relationship with his mother.
Yeah.
That's all he knows. That's what he wants to do. Amicia is just like, just move forward. We got to stay alive. We can't go back right now. We got to figure stuff out before we, you know, do anything else. And they basically clash and have butt heads the entire time. But you know, then they come to understand each other, have a better dynamic between them. But seeing how like sheltered Hugo has been, and then, you know, to see Little Pig, like, it was almost heartbreaking when he didn't put 2 and 2 together and was like, yeah, in order to get to the cellar of this laboratory, we have to sacrifice the pig to move the rats. And it's like, man, that's sad. And he's like, Amicia, what are you doing? I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible.
Like, it is a big moment, but it, like, I just put this into context. You just walked through a whole battlefield with
that on its own was just like, man, this is rough.
All the battlefield,
like, you're slowly sloshing through the bodies, and he's like, and I'm just like, man, I'm waiting for one of these to come alive and be like,
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was waiting for that moment as well. You had all the bodies, and then you had like the hundreds of pigs that were just like,
gosh, yes. And the cows, because I think they were also cows, so
like there was a lot going on there. And then it was like, oh, this one's alive, and it's like, I'm like, he goes over there and talks to it. It's like, I'm sorry about all your friends, and it's like,
I know,
it's like, oh gosh. Speaking of Amicia and Hugo, I think that their relationship was very well done. Like,
yes,
Amicia and Hugo are the best written characters out of all of them.
100%.
There are times where I'm just like, dude, just shut up.
I know.
But again, it does make sense because he is a 5-year-old kid. You know, he's only known his mother and then the, you know, the maids or whatever that were around her. But that's it. Like, he'd never seen frogs. Like, when he was like excited to see the frogs, it was really cool. And there was so many moments, and like even this moment where it was like in the residence of, you know, where they grew up. I can't remember the name of the family. But Daroon, yeah. There was a part where he had to climb up, and Amicia just went before him.
Yeah.
And then her mom was like, Amicia, you have to help him.
Yeah. And
then from then on, it was the total opposite. Like, it was just those little things throughout the game that really like spoke to details. But there were times I was just like, dude, get over this or I'm about to die.
Exactly. Well, and it's like, you know, I never really had to let him go that much, but the mechanic was like, oh, you can let Hugo go, but if you get too far, he gets scared and he'll alert the guards. And I'm like, don't you screw me, kid. Don't you do it.
Yeah. I didn't do that at all. Like, there might have been like 1 or 2 times where the game like forced me to do that.
Yeah.
When it was like the sleeping powder, like like, you know, that was about it. But Amicia and Hugo, really, really great characters.
Yep.
The mom, we didn't get much of. But I'm really curious. We'll talk about it later, like where it's going to go from here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the side characters that we were introduced to that were in your party. We had Arthur, we had Melly, and we had Roderick and Lucas. The Thieve twins, essentially, that's what I'm going to call them.
Yeah.
They were really, I felt like they were the thinner of the...
They were. Like, Arthur, you barely got any character development from. Melee was a one-note character. Like I said, she screamed. Like, even when I got played those last couple chapters, like, granted, she had a reason at the end.
Yeah.
You know, but she's just like, every time you asked her, like, I'm like, calm down. Don't yell at me. Stop. Why are you yelling? Stop yelling. Like, and it'd be simple things. And it's like, I don't know if it was, like I said, I don't know if it was the direction they gave her, if it was just poor direction for the voice actress, or if it was how it was written or whatnot, but it's like even simple things like, oh, we're happy-go-lucky, and she's like, ah! Like yelling. I'm just like screaming into her microphone. I'm like, why? Just stop. But she
Just
definitely
like you
felt
did
like
then for everybody
yeah,
else.
exactly.
They didn't get to
Sorry.
enjoy the game. Derek just gave you what it felt like.
I know. So don't be scared of the guards. If you alert them, be afraid of me. But yeah, Melly definitely was a one-note character. Like
Yeah.
I didn't care for either of them, especially because especially Arthur. But Lucas definitely had the biggest relationship with out of all of them.
Yeah, I agree. Lucas, I thought was pretty interesting, you know, being kind of this young kid that has studied alchemy and everything.
He was a scientist. Yeah.
Yeah, he was really interesting. Roderick was a good character, but I felt like they like really rushed him into the story. Kind of like the Thief twins as well. Like Lucas had time to kind of breathe, and then they were just kind of like jamming. It's like, okay, here are all these characters and everything. But I think in my order of like, you know, companions, Lucas, Roderick, Melly, and then Arthur. Like that's kind of like my.
I mean, Roderick, he was like the gentle giant because he was like he was the tank of the group. And you did feel for him at the end there.
Yeah.
When stuff happened. But, you know, I do agree where it's like, now granted there was time skips in there too, so we kind of got robbed of like the relationship building between them, but like it's kind of like you touched on it the other week. It's like they try to force him to be your best friend, and you're like, I'm not feeling this. You know, it's like we just met you, man. But again, there were time skips, so for the players, we got robbed of that relationship building. Now, granted, story wise, they talked about having these experiences at the castle and this, that, and the other, but it's like we didn't see that, we didn't experience that, so it's like we don't have that same connection that these characters in the game do. Yeah,
we got tell don't show, which is the opposite of how this kind of stuff should be done and everything. Speaking of Roderick's end, Arthur's end was kind of like, okay, kind of saw that coming because like they kind of telegraphed it. It's like, oh, I'm scared of being out here with all these rats, and it's like, okay, this dude's about to die. Like I really felt that. But Roderick's, where like he sacrificed himself to get you to the portcullis and everything.
And you almost wonder if he knew that, because that whole sequence, because it's like you got to push a cart because there's archers raining down arrows on you, and so you got to provide cover for Hugo. And Roderick and first Amicia is like, hey Roderick, you and me, let's push it. And Roderick just like pushes her away. Is like, no, you get Hugo to the other side. I'll provide you cover. And it's like that whole sequence. Now, granted, I hated that sequence because of how long it took. Because yes,
my gosh,
the cart took forever to move, but it was really good storytelling in the fact of like, you're doing this and you're fighting the guards off, keeping them from, attacking Roderick. But then but Hugo is like, oh, he got hit. I'm like, oh crap, here it goes. This is it. Because at first I was like, are they going to do this here? Are they? Or are they going to give him more of a dramatic, ending?
Yeah.
Or like more of a, I shouldn't say dramatic, more of like a
grandiose.
Grandiose, thank you. Grandiose going out. And then you hear Hugo being like, he's hit. I'm like, oh no, not this way, please. Not be the slow, agonizing end.
Yeah.
And then it's like he gets hit again, and then you finally make it to the gate and he lifts it, and I'm just looking at him like, he's not gonna come with him.
Yep.
He's not, and I'm just like, and then like Hugo, this is the like, because Hugo's seen people get, he's only seen like, oh, people get eaten by the rats or whatnot, but this is the first time that he's seen, because he didn't see his mother get stabbed. It was behind a door, and he didn't see the father get decapitated, because Amicia tried to protect him from all that, harm. So this is the first time, and he didn't even see Arthur get stabbed. It was Melly who kind of like saw that. This is the first time, like, Hugo, and you see it on his face, because he's just holding Roderick, and he's like, someone I care about is literally dying in front of me, and there's nothing I can do about it, because we'll get into it later. We find out more about Hugo's illness with the macula that gives him an upper hand of, and it's like you're going through with your chest puffed out, being like, we're invincible now, and it's like, and then he sees Roderick and he's like, nothing I can do, and it's just like, oh, that hurts. Nothing, man.
Yeah. And I don't know if you explored this area, because like I went through that sequence with the stupid card several times.
Yes.
I got so frustrated because the sling sometimes would work perfectly like it was designed.
Yep.
And then there were other times where it would totally just miss.
Well, luckily,
Totally just
because
miss.
I got the platinum for this game, so I did everything in it. So luckily, I upgraded my sling to where I could fire off 2 shots before I had to reload. So, but it was still like there were still times where I was like, granted, part of it was like I was second guessing where my aim reticle was, and I was just like, all right, get in there. It's like it would miss. I'm like, what are you doing? Aim for the head.
Well, even like I would be locked on and give me the yellow and it'd still miss.
Yes.
And it's like,
yes.
So it was very annoying. So I went around, like in that area, there was like another place where you could unlock a gate and you go to where Roderick's blacksmith shop is.
Yes. And even he's like, and then because it even tells you to click the look button, and he's like, oh look, and Roger's like, I don't think you should do that, and he's like, why? It's like, I know this place all too well, don't do it. And it's like he knows, but he doesn't want to come to that realization. And then you go through that gate and you see his family blacksmith shop destroyed, and it's like heartbreaking, literally right before he dies. And it's like, bro, this once, like, he gets no wins at this end sequence.
Yeah, and it's like Hugo's like, well, at least you're alive, and it's like,
foreshadowing is like, not for much longer.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh dude. So with all of the characters and all of that, story wise, before I introduce talk about the rats and, like, you know, villains and all of that, we found out that where they found the cure and everything, that Hugo's got a special power. You know, they kind of telegraph this.
And then there's a chapter, because, you know, there's a few, like, just discuss the chapters, because, you know, I kind of compared it the other week to the Order, where the Order 1886 kind of wasted a few chapters just to pad out. And there was a few chapters in here. It served its purpose for storytelling, but there's a few chapters where it could have just been combined with another one. Because there was a couple chapters where you literally played 10 minutes and then the chapter was done. It's like, why bother? What purpose did this really serve as a standoff? But then we get to play as a chapter where, because Hugo disappears, and that one chapter where Amici's having that fever dream, I couldn't tell if that was a real or she was just dreamt that whole thing. Like, I could not tell what was going on in that. But then we get to play as a chapter where you get to play as Hugo, and I'm like, and because he's sitting there, like, they need his blood because the Inquisition need it for what is it, the Archbishop or
the Grand Inquisitor? The
Grand Inquisitor, yeah, Vitalis, because he's got the plague, and Hugo's blood is you find out it's not after Hugo, they're after his blood because he has the macula, and they're trying to do something with it. So they capture him, they do that, and one of, like, the little priests or whatever walk out, and I'm like, is this going to be a Hugo level? And then it just cuts to him getting out of the chair. I'm like, this is a Hugo level, which was interesting. I felt like it was introduced too late into the game because I felt like, you know, they could have been more explored. They could have evolved his mechanics a little bit. But then you find out it's like Vitalis is like, come, my boy. Like, he was Palpatine, and he tried to make Hugo Anakin. And he's like, I can teach you some things that, you know, they will never want you to do. Yeah. And you come to find out, it's like, because you see through this, like, when the rats start to come through and, like, he senses them throughout in the beginning of the game, like, he gets headaches. He starts, you know, kind of like fading in and out. And you're like, man, what is this? Because it's kind of a tell that the rats are nearby. And you're like, well, what is his purpose? Like, why is he the only one that has this connection? And you come to find out it's like a family lineage, like, it's passed down, and they're here to control the rats. And you're like, what?
I wish I would have played it when it first came out. That way, like, that reveal wasn't like, I was like, okay, when is this going to happen in the game?
Yeah.
But it was still dope when it did happen. Yeah. With the rats, did you consider the rats the main villain or just a villain? Or do you think it was just kind of a means to an end?
I mean, okay, before we get to that revelation, I considered them more of an enemy than the Inquisitors, because yes, while the Inquisitors had weapons, this, that, and the other, you had means to fight them. The rats, like, you couldn't kill them except with one thing, fire. Like, because with the guards, you could use it to, like, use this acidic thing to make them take off their helmet and then kill them with the sling, or feed them to the rats, or this, that, and the other. Where the rats is like, you don't have fire, you're not getting through no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Or if there's not meat hanging around you, or like a guard to sacrifice, nothing's happening. So I did consider them a main enemy, but then when that revelation comes that you can control them and basically sick them, like, basically, once Hugo gets that power up, you're not afraid of the rats anymore. So I consider them, like, they are an enemy, because that end sequence with that end fight with Vitalis, like, if Hugo wasn't around, Amicia does get eaten,
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so without Hugo, so they are still a threat to an extent, but they also serve, they're kind of a hybrid between a villain and a means to an end. Like, they're not they definitely lessen as the main villain for sure. Like, it's definitely Vitalis and that crew as we get, because we see them as Amicia sneaking through and Hugo sneaking through, that they're doing some experiments with their own rats. It's they're not wanting to cure Vitalis, so to speak. They're wanting to give him more power as well.
Yeah.
And can definitely give him control of different type of rat. But I definitely see them more of a means to an end, but they were still a threat.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with Dan here. I felt like they were more of an obstacle than necessarily a villain. Like, they posed challenges to being able to traverse the world. They weren't like actively working against me. They were just kind of this hive mind and everything. Speaking of that part where you do like first get to control the rats, it's not like it is later where you could literally just walk in the middle of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if they get too close to you, they still will eat you.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like,
cross that second threshold yet.
Yeah, it was like, oh my god, this is annoying. But the Inquisition, I think I feared them more than the rats, because if they got close enough to you, you were just done.
They could breathe on you, you're dead.
Yeah. And it was like, okay, the rats can see me.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. The rats can see me, but as long as I'm near like a light source, they're not going to come near me. With the Inquisition, it's like, if they see me, I'm dead. Like, or I'm really close to being dead. That's why, like, with the Inquisition, it was more of like, okay, I have to really like think about what I'm about to do. The rats, again, it was like to Dan, more like an obstacle than necessarily a villain. I think earlier on, I think it was more like a villain kind of thing, especially when the rats have eyes, says Amy. Especially the first time you encounter the rats down at the bottom of that cathedral.
Yes.
Like, when they just swarm out, like, that was like, oh my gosh.
Like, and then, like, because I got caught that first one, because it's like they just swarm, and then you're like running toward the light, and then they're like, you just see them behind you just swarming. I'm like, oh no, no, run.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. With story and everything, before we jump into gameplay and all of that, so do the heels, says Murdoch. Do you think the story overall did a good job of telling what it needed to tell?
And to my, like, could it have still fleshed some things out? Because, like, we'll get it, because there were some gripes I had with I had more gripes with the gameplay than I did the story, because I do feel like some of the mechanics, like, like with the rats and everything, I feel like that came too late.
Yeah.
In an aspect, but I do think as serving this journey that Amicia and Hugo went on, from losing their family, because you do find out the mother's alive, like, and like, now for how much longer we don't know. Hopefully that'll be answered in the second game. But she does help Hugo at the end, because he does reunite with his mother. She helps him, and then Vitalis gets a hold of him and is like, I can. And that whole sequence where, like, they're at the castle, and Nicholas comes, and they have this fight, and he's like, oh, I've got an ace up your sleeve. Your brother's here to kill you. And it's like, what? And then I was like, please don't make me have to kill Hugo. Please don't do this to me. And then she breaks through to him, and then he's just like, I am death incarnate. And he's like, now the rats kill you. And, you get to use that, and it's like OP the rest of the game. Like, you can just basically, like, as long as you take out the fire, the rest is easy.
Yeah. You get too cocky with it. I will tell you that. There was one sequence where, like, you cleared, like, a little town square, and then more guards came in after that. Like, you're with Roderick. And then I'm like, I just used the rats. And then it was just like, nope. They got... yeah, it's like you got to still play this a little bit smart and everything. So I did get a little cocky there at the very beginning of that part.
And then like the final fight, because to kind of put a bow on this, because I do think it did do a great job of telling this tale. There were some bumps in the road, obviously, but it was more of the side cast. But as the main cast with Amici and Hugo, I think it did a great job telling it. Getting a starting point. They bump heads. They have their arguments, they have their disagreements, they come together over a common goal, because when he does fall ill, that's all on Amicia's mind, like, to get to that university is like, we need to help him, we need to find him this cure, and then loses him, she's heartbroken over it, she has that fever dream, then gets back with him, and then like you hear it in their dialogue too, because like I found like the flower, because I collected all the flowers, and there was that one in the town square with Roderick, like he's trying to bust into that burning house. You kill the guards there, and you find this flower. I forget what it is. And he's like, "Oh, and Hugo's like, "This flower's just like you. It's like us. It's strong. It's fierce, together, whatnot." And I'm like, okay, now they finally come together. They've hashed it out. They finally understand each other. They're coming together as siblings, and that means the final fight with Vitalis, because Vitalis has those powers now, but now he controls naked mole rats. And that final fight, like, the rats evolved too, because like when they do that little tornado swarm, that was terrifying. It's like, oh, we can put out fire now. I'm like, what? No, don't do that to me. Don't do this. But that final fight with Vitalis, like, it was annoying, and I died a lot of times in that as well.
Oh my gosh.
But I think it did. Now, the epilogue, probably I could do without, because it didn't really serve a purpose other than like, oh, we got the things to help your mother, and that was it. I'm like, did that need to be told? Like, did I have to go through that town square? And the only highlight was, oh, we're having a fair, but you're not invited because you control the rats. We still don't know if you're trustworthy. I'm like, okay, I don't care about this. Just get me to the end.
I think, like, the ending was to show that things have returned to normal. Like, the rats are going away. Beatrice is still recovering. They're on their way. Melly is not part of the group anymore. She's gone. It just kind of like puts a ribbon on it, because if they would have ended just at the very end of like the Vitalis fight, I was like, is that it? I was like, that did not satisfy me enough. So like that little bit was like, okay, I feel good enough to like end the story here.
Yeah.
The fight with him was so flipping annoying. Yes. Like having to figure out, okay, I have to go, as it went on, the last wave where it's like, it's like a smash, then it's the floor thing, then it's a smash again, then it's another floor thing, and then it's one more smash. Yeah. And it's like you have to like set yourself up to be able to like just hit the outside part and not the middle, because then you're gonna have to start all over again.
Exactly. Well, and then Hugo's rats can't get through either.
Yeah.
And like even leading up to that, because it's like we're here to stop you, and they roll up in there like the Avengers or whatnot. And you see him drop those little like lanterns, because while the rats Hugo controls are scared of fire, the rats that Vitalis controls swarm to fire. That's their strength. It's kind of like Superman and Bizarro. Like Kryptonite hurts Superman but helps Bizarro.
Yeah.
And even before that, it's like, all right, the white rats can swarm, and it's like you got to counter them with your own swarm, and it's like, okay. And then you see the little pikes, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, how am I supposed to advance? And they just keep coming, and then it doesn't give you any hints. So I just like, do I put these out? And I'm like, I put it out, and then it advances, but then he sends more. They get faster with the tornadoes, and I'm like, okay, cool. Then you finally get up to him, and then he does all the swarm, and then the first section, because it's a typical hit the boss sometimes you're done. It's not as bad. You just go to the left and the right, avoid the middle so that Hugo can send his rats to him, and be done with it. But you just avoid the pillar to the left, right, and then hit him. You're good. But then it's like one pillar, like you said. Then like they come from underground. I'm like, okay, I can dodge this. And then he puts a lantern there. I'm like, oh, put this out so you can send the rats. Cool, got it. Then it's like the third one. I'm like, all right, I know this pattern now. But then it's like they just like they hit up, and then like not even a second later are falling down on you. And I got hit so many times. Like, oh crap, I am mistiming this like no one's business.
Yeah, to Dan's point, it was so easy to get trapped.
Yes.
So easy to get trapped in that part. Like there was a time where it was like, okay, one hit and I was caught in between like a pillar that fell and then like where they would come out of the floor, and then there was like another pillar and I was like, okay, I'm dead. Like I knew I was dead. Like there was no way to get through it. Like even using like the thing that would attract them didn't work. Like it was just like I was like, I don't know what to do here. So it took me several times fighting him, which is fine. Like that is the final boss and everything. It should be challenging, but it was annoying at the same time. Let's talk about the mechanics overall in the game.
We've been dancing around it, but let's actually get into it, because that's I think my biggest gripe.
I agree with you. Like I think this is the weakest point of the game is the mechanics. The combat is hit or miss, literally hit or miss. We talked about it earlier. You could be locked onto somebody and then it just go right past them.
Well,
go ahead.
I was gonna say my biggest problem with the mechanics overall, right, is I feel like they introduced it, but then when they introduce something else, they kind of let you forget about it, right? Like with the I forget, because I remember some of the names like Ignifer and whatnot in the Episanguis, but some of them I don't remember. The one where you hit the guards in the helmet with the acid to make them take it off. Now, granted, yes, I understand. Like once the rats become more of a bigger factor in later chapters, you can like spam them and figure out ways to take them out, and I get that. But it does. I don't think it does a good job of making you remember, like, hey, you have this as well. Like the acid potion. I feel like they let you forget about that, and it doesn't become a factor at all after a certain point in the game. The same thing with the Episanguis. Like, and it's like some of it was like I understand it was more of a boss fight, but I kind of felt like it could lead to other like mechanics, like certain guard types in the game, like that first guard boss with like, oh, you're Amicia fighting it, and it's like, oh, these little like latches, you got to throw it, you use your sling to knock it off to get his helmet off to, knock him out. I felt like that was going to be a bigger play, like with guards later down the road, and it never was. And just like I feel like the controlling the rats, like I don't think it should have been halfway through the game, but it shouldn't have been like the last 2 chapters of the game either, because it's like, all right, now not only do I not fear the rats anymore, but this is like, okay, like, yeah, granted they throw more guards at you in the last chapter, but it doesn't make me feel like it was super important. Like, okay, you're just throwing this in here because you have to give like an out for the final boss fight. So I don't feel like the mechanics, like while the crafting and the potions were better paced, they don't do a good job of making you remember. It's like, hey, giving you other options to. I'm not saying you have to give situations where you have to use everything, but like the Lacrimosa or the whatever it was to like that destroys the rats. Other than when I found the alchemist cards, I didn't use them, mainly because they drain resources faster, but I had no reason to use them because the alchemist cards, you don't have any because literally they're in a small alcove and literally it's just the rats right there in front of it, and you have no other choice but to use it. And it's like, why did you introduce this? I don't care about it. It's not that big of a thing to me. It doesn't play like, granted, some people play differently, and I get that, but to me, it didn't pose a big factor for some of it, and I feel like they forgot about some of those mechanics as they got through later into the game.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that, where it was like, okay, we've given you this tool, now you don't need this tool anymore. Like earlier on, it would have been amazing to have that tool. But it's like once they got introduced and then they introduced the next one after it, that previous one most of the time wasn't needed anymore. And that kind of stinks because it was very interesting, like potions and different things that you could use throughout the game. But there were definitely times, like, especially when you got the rats, it was like, okay, all I got to do is throw the extinguisher stuff on the fire and then pop the rats over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you didn't really have to work as hard to take out groups of guards and everything.
Yeah.
Um,
And then I felt like they made, I think like to the opposite end, I felt like they didn't they made you focus on one thing too much. Like once you got introduced to the Ignifer, it's like, all right, for these couple chapters, that's all we're gonna be able to give you to use. And then toward the end, it's like, oh, we're gonna give you this extinguisher, and that's the only thing you need to worry about
Yep.
using for the most part to get through some of these levels later on. It's like, okay, I don't need you, like I said, I don't need you to force me to use everything, but it needs to be better balanced.
yeah, it'd be nice, to have seen where it's like, okay, now you're using the Ignifer, now you're using the acid stuff. Okay, now you've got to use the rats. Now you've got to use the, the light, to
Yeah.
whatever. Like, it'd been interesting to see more dynamic gameplay in that side of things.
Just yeah, exactly. Because sorry to cut you off. Again, the sleeping potion. I used it once. Never had a reason to craft it again.
I'll use it all the time
Yeah.
because, like, if you had it crafted and you got attacked, you could like throw it in their face. That's
true.
That's the only reason why I kept it around, was
Yeah.
that just in case like I was getting attacked, I could, move it along and everything.
Pocket sand.
Yeah, exactly. Pocket sand. Do you think the setting that we were in, France during the bubonic plague and everything, did you think it worked overall to help tell the story?
Well, and it's like, okay, what I mean by the setting is like, did it, because like Assassin's Creed, like, granted, even though the maps are overloaded with like collectathons and all that, it makes you feel like with Odyssey, you felt like you lived in ancient Greece. With Origins, you felt like you were in ancient Egypt. France, other than like the accents and like the plague and some of like the architecture and whatnot, it didn't really make you feel like you were in France. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I pose this question as like, does it make you feel like you were in the world? Did it feel authentic? Like, in look only, like, it didn't make you feel like, oh, this is important. Like, there was no important landmarks that they kind of pointed out. It was just kind of now, granted, maybe this was a fictional version of France. I do get that, but it still needs to feel like the world needs to be as big of a factor as like the characters and the gameplay and the story or whatnot, because I think that does help the story along. But for me personally, I don't feel like, like I said, you wouldn't know that was in France if it wasn't for the accents. You know what I mean? And like some of the architecture, it's like, okay, and some of like the the tapestry and whatnot, like it was French tapestry and like some of the designs. But I don't feel like with it being set in France did anything other than just like, oh, you're here, that's it.
Yeah, like it just felt European. I will agree with you on that. Like it just felt like it could be any really European country. Nothing set it apart from other countries in that time period because they had very gothic style. I think they got the style and the look down pat, but again, it's like this place is overran with rats. You know what I mean? It's like you're not really like looking at like, I feel like I'm in the French countryside right now.
Exactly.
It's like, it's like you're just trying to survive. To the point with the accents and everything, I love that like all the actors were French.
Yes.
Like it was like actually French speaking actors and everything that were, speaking in English, but they had that accent and everything. I love that because I think the group that made it are actually French. Cause like I was looking at the credits, the credits, and it was like
probably right.
So many French names and everything.
Okay.
So I thought that was really, really cool to get to see. And the lore building throughout, with the collectibles and everything, I thought was very interesting. The flowers that you brought up, I think is the best part of the lore system. I thought that was really cool getting to see, how Hugo like was taught by Beatrice and he's getting to share that information with Amicia because she didn't really get that time with her mother.
Nope. And like and like in twofold, because Amicia was more cultured in other things, like when you find the curiosities or when you find like the little gifts or whatever, Amicia comments on them. And it gives Hugo history lesson because the mother was more into alchemy and like the science
Mm-hmm.
aspect, so she had to work with a lot of herbs and flowers and whatnot. Where as Amicia got to experience more toys, more like other objects, so
Mm-hmm.
it was nice. Again, it was a great dynamic, and they played off of each other to get make them more cultured.
Yeah. And I love that. I love like getting to learn about the world, and that kind of goes to that setting. Does it work? Does it make you feel like that? And those little things definitely added to it. But I
Yeah,
feel you that there were some things that were still missing there.
yeah,
So overall, I thought the game was great. We're gonna get into like the future because we're
yeah.
coming
The near
close to
future.
the near future and everything. But overall, Derek, kind of give me like your final thoughts on A Plague Tale Innocence. Would you recommend the game?
Yes, for sure. I would definitely recommend it, especially now. Obviously, if you don't play it around kids, because it does have some moments, like again with the pig, with the dog, a lot of death in that game. So definitely don't play it around youngins, or your family members that are like don't like blood is like, that's
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Um, but I definitely recommend it, like especially like in a world where there's no there's not really an in between anymore. Like it's either AAA blockbuster games or
Mhm.
indie darlings. There's really not that in between. So this nice AA game was a breath of fresh air. It's definitely underrated. Like I said, if you want, because it does let you explore a little bit, but it's not open world. It's very linear. It's very point A to point B type of thing. So if you just want to like have something to just like binge and like devour in a day or two, I would definitely recommend this game, especially if you like, because what was it? What game was that compared to? It's like especially if you have a different point in your life where it's like you had a similar relationship with like your siblings, or you have a very strong relationship with your siblings, but you didn't in the beginning. You know, it's definitely something that hits a note, like especially for like in an older stage of your life.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I think this was a fantastic game that took a very interesting setting
Yes.
and brought you into there and gave you an experience that is really unlike a lot of games these days, with
Yeah.
open world games
Yep.
and
Collectathons.
collectathons. There's a little bit of that, but just enough to like kind of wet your whistle. And
Exactly.
the emotional journey that you take with Amicia and
Yes.
Hugo is so good, where you'll go from I really don't like this brat to
Yeah.
like you just want to save him and
Yeah.
protect him, and where he grows up as much
Yep.
as you do as Amicia. And it's just a fantastic look at the kind of the world that they would have lived in with the church and how the church can be corrupt
Yep.
in that day and age, the Catholic
Yep.
Church and everything. And they did a fantastic job of really showing kind of that
Yeah.
dichotomy of
Because
power
it
corrupt.
wasn't like the tired trope where it's like, oh, we wanna, we want to be a radical faction. They were a radical faction, but they wanted more power, and like they actually got the power. They weren't just like
Yeah.
a pie in the sky. Like let's achieve this.
Yeah. And it was very interesting where it was not necessarily the church. It was a madman, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
he was after his own empowerment and his own glorification. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that speaks a lot to this day and age, for
Yep.
sure. But yeah, I highly recommend it. Again, it's rated M for a reason.
Yep.
It is not meant for the kiddos, for sure. But let's move into the near future. We're coming up on A Plague Tale Requiem
Mm-hmm.
in the next few months, which it comes
Yeah.
out
October
when
18th.
October 18th. Hey, man, that might be October's game of the month. Um, with everything, what improvements do you want to see in the story, characters, mechanics, and setting versus what we
Mm-hmm.
got?
So for story, I definitely want, like story wise, I hope they keep and keep evolving that relationship between Amicia and Hugo, because I did watch. They put out 3 trailers, like of course like the teaser, then more of like the story trailer, and then they put out the Xbox showcase. They did that gameplay trailer a few months ago. So I rewatched all those just because now I understand like the whole story. I understand where all these characters have come from.
Yep.
And Amicia and Hugo are older. It definitely seems like it's a different dynamic that they're going into. I definitely want that dynamic to keep evolving. Now, in what direction? Don't know. I have theories on that we'll get into in a minute. But mechanics, in one of the trailers, like, because I felt like while you had the sling, while you had the alchemy potions and whatnot, I felt like there was no hand-to-hand combat options that you could do. And while it doesn't seem like that, like, because I was like, can't I just choke out the guards? Like, because Roderick does that. Like, you can sick Roderick to go, take out the guards, like the heavies. But it's like, why can't I do that? Or why can't I, why do I have to push the rats to them? Why can't I push them into the thing? And some of the trailer and the gameplay does show a little bit of that. Does show that you hit Amicia pushing a guard into a pile of rats to get eaten. So I hope they evolve on the stealth mechanics a little bit, like especially if you want to go sneaky sneak. But I also hope they improve, because while the sling was an essential part, like her main weapon, in the trailers she does have a crossbolt on her back. So it's looking like they're going to give you more options, like more ranged options to go with.
Yeah.
I felt like her sling's going to be in the prologue. They're going to have her sling. It's going to get destroyed, and she finds a crossbolt as her new ranged weapon. Hugo, I hope it's not just copy and paste with his powers. I hope they get to evolve, and there's actually a skill tree with the rats that you can make them, because you could sick them, but at the very fight with Vitalis, then you could summon them to do the tornado move. I hope you could evolve that and make them do other things as well. With the setting, it looks more of like a Pacific Island type setting, like more like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where it's like seaside, like beautiful day. The rats are still a central factor, and like it was a huge thing, like the little sea of rats coming toward Amicia. I hope while I do hope they have a skill tree with Hugo, I want to see them maybe become a threat again. You know what I mean? Like, still play a big factor into it, not just be your allies throughout the thing. Like, maybe like halfway through, like introduce a new species that have evolved past the macula and can't be controlled as easily.
Yeah, definitely. For me, like, I definitely want more in-depth characters. Like Amicia and Hugo definitely are the stronger.
But make the cast, the supporting cast, a little better.
Yeah, don't force it. You know what I mean? Like, make it feel realistic, because that's what I really want out of a story. I'd love to see what Beatrice is going to bring to it. Does she survive? Is Lucas still around? Have they parted ways for whatever reason? Does Lucas work against you? Because whatever, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen there? Mechanics, like you said, an interesting way to go about it would be getting more powers from Hugo, going through different thresholds and everything would be very, very interesting.
Dan brings up remnants of the white rats.
Ooh, yeah. And is Vitalis really dead?
Yeah. Or was he the only one that got the power of the macula? Were there others that took it for themselves?
Yeah. Like, I feel like that's not done. I don't feel like that's
exactly.
done.
Just like how the Eclipse weren't technically done in Horizon Forbidden West. There was that little story arc with them to put a bow on that thing. I don't feel like it's done in this one either.
Yeah. And like, I really agree with make the rats something has to be a threat / obstacle to overcome. It just can't be just like you walking in with rats and just like, rat to the face or rat to the face. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be something that challenges the main characters.
Well, and in the trailer, like Hugo's like, Amicia, do you want me to do it? It's like, yes, do it. Like I'm about to say, but be careful. Like, so, because they kind of hinted at that. It's like he can't just keep spamming that power, right? Like, it will cost him. Now what type of cost, we don't know. We never saw that. Maybe we'll see it in this one. Maybe he'll come to a point where he's spammed it too much, but then Amicia's put in danger, or someone like his mother or some other character that you like. Maybe Melly comes back and is put in danger, or Lucas is in danger, and he has to come to that point where it's like, if he does it again, this is gonna that point of no return is gonna happen, and then we see the ramifications. Like, I don't know. Like, I do think they need to flesh out that dynamic with Hugo and his, because yes, while it wasn't like a cure, it was just like a standoff type of thing, or just like just a nullifier type of thing. It's not gone. Like, he still has it, and we still don't know the full extent of like what he can do, what kind of backlash he'll face for overusing the power. So I think they'll flesh it out in that game, in the sequel more.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know in the game, like if you used it multiple times in a row, before you got to the church and everything, that the rats would stop listening to you.
Yeah, that never happened with me, but that's interesting.
Yeah. Like if you use it like 3 times in a row, they stop listening, which was very interesting. So
yeah,
I would like to see what the ramifications, because Beatrice is like, don't let him use his powers too much. Like, she kept saying that over and over in that last boss fight and everything. And then to the last one, do you think it'll have contrasting themes like The Last of Us Part 1 and 2?
And for those of you who haven't played either one or both, Last of Us Part 1, like, while it was still like a post-apocalyptic thing, like, both of them they had different themes, and Neil Druckmann's talked about this several times. Like, Last of Us Part 1 was more about love, like reconnecting, because you know how Joel loses his daughter, like, he doesn't know if he can love again, and then he finds Ellie, and he loves her just like a daughter at the end, you know, like, he cares for her. And then Part 2 is all about revenge, because, again, spoilers because Last of Us Part 2 is a couple-year-old game.
No.
Okay, never mind.
Hadn't played it.
Okay. Oh, okay. But something happens, and it's a revenge tale. It's a revenge tale for the game. So they go from love to hate/revenge. And in the trailers, like Plague Tale Innocence, because you can kind of tell Requiem is like, you know, a send-off. Like, it's a, like, hold on. Let me just make sure I got this right, because I don't want to be misquoting.
Well, a Requiem is what is sung at a funeral.
It's also an act or token of remembrance. It's a remembrance. But yeah, it's Requiem is also a musical depiction too. Innocence is kind of like telling, like, oh, you're ignorant, you don't know what to expect. Like, it's Hugo. Hugo's had his innocence removed because he's never experienced the world, especially to this thing. And Amicia's never experienced the world like this. Like, she's been out in the world, she knows there's dangers, but didn't know to this extent. So that innocence was removed. Requiem is like, you know, an act of remembrance. So I feel like there will be different tones, and in the trailer you get it. Like, now granted, they kind of alluded to it with Amicia in this game too, because it's like, I don't want you killing soldiers. Like, why are you killing these people? Why do you have, and it's a necessary evil. But Requiem, they kind of hint as like, Amicia's just like, oh, there's more guards or whatever. These people are trying to kill us or take Hugo or whatever they're trying to do. And I've been through this before. Not going to happen again. I'm just going to kill all of you and solve this problem just like I did before. And even I think it was Lucas said, I don't want you killing guards anymore, Amicia. And she's like, I'll try not to. And then, like, the next couple sequences are her killing the guards. So I feel like it'll be more, I feel like while Hugo and Amicia were important, I feel like this was more about Hugo and his problems, but I think this is going to focus more on Amicia and her turning into like a death machine and them trying to like save her from becoming that, while also trying to make Hugo a focal point with his macula.
Okay, I'm on predict right now what the story is going to be. You know, I love my predictions, Derek. Requiem could be for many things. It could be, you know, a token. It could be, you know, remembrance of what was.
Yeah.
It could be Beatrice dies.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say is Requiem is going to be about Hugo and Amicia's relationship falling apart
Yes.
and they're going to be torn apart and on opposite sides of some sort of conflict.
Yes.
And that's going to be that's my call.
Yeah. I like it because I feel like it'll come to a point where like she'll force Hugo to use her power. Like they're going to come a threat where they have to use the rats, and she knows Hugo's can't use his powers again because they're going to reach that threshold, and she's going to force him to use it, and Hugo's like, no, I don't want to. And she's like, do it, or I'm going to break your arm or something like that, and like pretty much strong arm Hugo into doing it, and that's going to cause there's going to be some type of rift between the relationship. I feel it. Like it doesn't really hint at that in the trailers, but they don't want to give that away either. You know what I mean? Because like I said in the gameplay trailer, Amicia went on a rampage, and they made her seem like she was going to be like, I want them all dead. Now, probably right. Probably they do kill the mother, or take her again and like torture her. Or, like anyway, I do feel like there will be something a la Last of Us Part 2 that's going to cause a rift and just make Amicia go on this killing spree where it's like, I don't care if you have family, you wronged me, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. And that's what I think. Guys, we want to hear your thoughts. What are your predictions for A Plague Tale Requiem? And what did you think about A Plague Tale Innocence? I'm excited. October will be here soon.
And it's going to be day one Game Pass.
Day one Game Pass, guys. Sad I'm not going to get those sweet trophies, but that's okay.
Would you rather save $60 or get trophies?
Let's be honest. I just wait till you bought it.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I will buy it on PlayStation, so you'll get it free regardless.
Yeah, you know. But there,
game share.
There you go. But there you go, guys. There's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you are excited about for A Plague Tale Innocence, and that you're ready for some awesome God of War this month and next month. I am so excited. And here's our countdown as I give you the spiel for the very end of this, guys. Make sure to support us over on patreon.com. Find the tier that works best for you. And also you can go support us by subscribing and following us on all the various platforms. You can check out our podcast version as well over on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and Anchor. AAA. Enjoyed it, man.
Mm-hmm. Always good.
Enjoyed it. Can't wait for the next one. Guys, y'all have a great week. This has been Zach.
And AAA.
A blessed week.